Everyone tells Noahides what not to do. If you follow online discussions about the Noahide path, you'll notice something strange. Everyone, online commentators, influencers, well-meaning teachers, and random voices in forums is telling Noahides what not to do. Don't pray this prayer. Don't say that word. Don't imitate Jews. Don't do too much. Don't do too little. It's like a spiritual minefield. And a spiritual life is defined, a spiritual life that is defined only by what you don't do, what you avoid, is not a life. It's a vacuum. So this year is about what God actually wants you to do. How to build a practical Noahide life of dignity, grounding, and connection to the Creator. Now, here's the problem. Leaving something is not the same as entering something. Many Noahides leave Christianity or other systems because they believe in God, they want to live a good and spiritual life, and they are seeking truth, but they no longer believe in the religions that they've experienced. They step away from something that felt untrue or incomplete, but they don't yet know what they are entering. And this step is not small. Many of the religions they've come from have been part of their family's life for generations, or if they've offered community, identity, and belonging. To leave all of that behind, to walk away from inherited belief, family tradition, and familiar community takes a tremendous amount of courage. It takes a real seeker to start down what can be a lonely path in search of truth. And that leads to confusion, fear of mistakes, drift or overreach, guilt and identity uncertainty. But you know what? The Torah does not want you confused or anxious. God gave humanity a path that's practical and beautiful. Humanity was given a mission. Before Sinai, the Torah spoke to all humanity. The idea that we are created in God's image, as we see in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. Let us make man in our image. Male and female, he created them. We see in chapter 2, verse 7, God formed the human from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. We see that man was given commandments. Chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. The charge to work and to guard the garden, and the prohibition regarding the tree of knowledge. Humanity's first job description is partnership with God. And what does it mean? What does it mean when God breathed life into the human being? Many commentators explain that this divine breath is not merely biological animation, but the source of our inner moral and spiritual awareness. Unclus translates Nefesh Chaim, a living soul, as Ruach Memalela, which means a speaking spirit, which Chazal, our sages, understand as being endowed with thought, discernment, and moral judgment. The Ramban writes that the divine breath bestowed on humanity dat, or understanding, and bechira, free will, which enables human beings to distinguish good from evil. The Sforno says that this breath, explicitly he says this, gives a person hakara ben tov l'ra, the capacity to recognize the difference between good and evil. And we see in the Medrash, where we're taught that the soul that's breathed into Adam contains wisdom, discernment, judgment, and moral responsibility. So while the verse itself doesn't use the word conscience, these classical commentators unanimously understand the divine breath to mean precisely the moral and spiritual faculties that we now refer to as conscience. This foundational dignity is echoed later by Rabbi Akiva in Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 14. Beloved is man, for he was created in the image of God. And Rabbi Akiva adds that this love is even greater because it was made known to humanity that they were created in his image. Meaning that human moral responsibility is not accidental or obscure. It's the revealed core of what it means to be human. So the Torah's opening chapters and Rabbi Akiva's teaching together form a single truth. Every human being, simply by virtue of being created in God's image, is endowed with conscience, moral agency, and the capacity for partnership with the Creator. When the Rambam tells us that one who accepts the 7 laws, because God commanded them through Moses, is among the righteous of the nations, we understand that we're talking about something that we could call covenantal dignity. See, a Noahide is not a tolerated outsider. This is very important. The Rambam is teaching that a ben or a bat Noach who accepts the 7 laws because they come from God, they're not only permitted to exist under Jewish law, nor are they simply tolerated as a non-Jew living amongst Jews. But rather, a person like that is a full participant in God's universal covenant with humanity. They're endowed with spiritual significance, moral responsibility, and a share in the world to come. This means that their relationship with God is real, it's intentional, and it's valued. It's a genuine covenantal role. It's not a marginal or secondary status. We're talking about different roles, same God, shared mission. Chazal teach us a simple but profound truth. God does not hold people accountable for what he has not made known to them. Divine judgment is never arbitrary. It's always preceded by guidance, by moral instruction, by the inner and outer tools that a person needs in order to live rightly. And this is itself is a mark of dignity. God takes human beings seriously. He expects something of us because he endowed us with the capacity to rise to that expectation. Accountability is not a sign of distance. It's a sign of partnership. When God guides, commands, warns, or calls a person to responsibility, it's because that person matters in the world. In other words, the fact that God gives humanity a moral framework is itself evidence of human greatness. Now, before we move into the practical steps, the practical foundations, we have to recognize a truth that principles shape identity, but practices shape life. So what follows is where the Noahide mission becomes real, where it becomes tangible and lived. Let's talk about practical Noahide life. To move from principle into lived reality, we're going to shift from the foundations to the practice itself, from the dignity of the Noahide calling to its daily expression. Here is the practical path that Noahides can live with clarity and with strength. Number one, live by conscience. Conscience is not guilt or intuition. It's a God-given instrument that guides us toward what is right. And when we violate that inner direction, healthy guilt becomes the signal, our inner meaning organ or our antenna, alerting us that we've stepped out of alignment with the truth that we already know. Practically, that means speak truth, keep promises, don't exploit people, don't steal time, money, or credit. Now, of course, observe the 7 laws as a life framework, not as a checklist, but as a moral identity. Because these 7 laws shape justice, fidelity, nonviolence, respect for life, and fairness. It's also true that when we look at the 7 Noahide laws as a simple list, even though there are actually 7 categories, which are made up of many mitzvot, they appear almost entirely as prohibitions, with only one positively phrased commandment, which is to establish courts of law to uphold and enforce the other 6. If you printed them on a refrigerator magnet, it would look like being a Noahide is just a list of things you're not supposed to do. But that surface impression hides something much deeper. The Gemara itself raises this question. In the tractate Sanhedrin, when the suggestion arises that Noahides should be obligated to give tzedakah, to give charity, the Talmud challenges it. It says, if that's the case, then let that be listed amongst the 7. In other words, if they're really commanded to do it, why doesn't it appear in that list? And the Gemara's answer is that only negative prohibitions, only the don'ts, are listed in that specific formulation. But you have to understand something clearly. There are only 7 categories of prohibitions, but there are many, many positive commandments for Noahides. The Torah chose to list the prohibitions because they form, let's call it the boundary lines of civilization. These are the edges, these are the lines you can't cross. But the positive commandments, the acts that build justice, kindness, responsibility, and moral elevation, they're way more numerous. This means that the Noahide mission is not defined by the negative list alone, but by the vast expanse of positive responsibility that flows from it, preventing harm, elevating society, creating the moral conditions in which God's presence can be honored in the world. Now, what about prayer? You can pray anytime, in any language. There's nothing wrong with using parts of Jewish liturgy, psalms, or biblical verses when you pray. For some people, structure is grounding. For others, the beauty and poetry of traditional language opens their heart more easily. But there's no obligation for a Noahide to use formal liturgy. And prayer is not a performance. It's an encounter with Hashem. Some people need structure. Others miss the comforting rhythm of ritual in their lives. And others must paint their own communication with God, spontaneously, honestly, and creatively. All these paths, all these ways of approaching it are legitimate. And that's because the B'nai Noach include all human beings on earth who are not Jewish. That's pretty much everybody. That's like 8 billion people. And such a vast range of souls requires an equally vast range of possibilities for expression. It's like walking out into a field where there's a million different plants, trees, and flowers that are growing there wildly. And each one of these creations has its own way of praying, as it were. Rabbi Nachman teaches the importance of praying outdoors, like we see with Isaac, where all the elements of nature join in the prayer. Each plant has its own shape and color and fragrance, and a unique share of the chen, the grace and the beauty that God has blessed this world with. So that's the way it is with human beings. Each soul speaks to God in its own voice. Now, of course, naturally, many people will ask, okay, but what should I pray for? Prayer is where the inner life meets the divine presence. And just like there are 7 notes in a musical scale, there's probably a basic set of things that we pray for. Practically speaking, here are some possibilities. Gratitude in the morning when you wake up and God has given you another day. Asking Him for guidance in everything. Confessing your wrongdoings. Think about an evening self-scan, like a brief, gentle reflection at the end of the day. Pause and ask yourself, where did I live in alignment with my values today? Where did I fall short? We call this a cheshbon hanefesh, kind of an accounting, a soul's accounting. Did I harm anyone? Did I ignore my conscience? What can I repair or strengthen tomorrow? It's not really a ritual or a confession. It's just honest self-reflection that strengthens character and keeps you aligned with the path of goodness. And this can be part of your conversation with Him. No. Study Torah anywhere in the Tanakh that speaks to you. Noahides can study any part of the Tanakh as long as it's done with an authoritative Jewish translation that is faithful to the original Hebrew text. We know the disasters that have come from inauthentic translations into other languages. That's been going on for thousands of years now. The fact is that, different parts of Torah speak to different people at different times. The guiding principle is pretty simple. If a passage of Torah helps you grow, in moral clarity, responsibility, and your reverence for God, or your understanding of the human condition, that's relevant to your life as a Noahide. What matters is not restricting yourself to a predefined list, but engaging the parts of Torah that genuinely move, challenge, and elevate you. Now, there are parts of Torah that you should not be studying as Noahides. For more detail on that, you should check out one of our earlier videos on the subject, because that's important. But because the Torah is deep and it's layered and it's rooted in a living tradition, your study should ideally be done with guidance from learned Jewish teachers and rabbis who are grounded in the chain of transmission that has come down to us all the way from Moses. Don't shoot from the hip. Torah is not meant to be reinvented or interpreted without grounding. And we're going to emphasize this later on. The Torah is taught. It comes alive when it's received from those who carry its wisdom with accuracy, humility, and fidelity. The Torah's vision of human dignity and covenantal life shows clearly what God wants from us. So when we talk about building ethical families and relationships, what that means is stable homes. The Torah consistently portrays the home as the center of moral development. If we look at Genesis chapter 18, verse 19, God praises Abraham for commanding his household in righteousness and justice. A stable home is the first sanctuary of goodness. Loyal marriages, Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, describes man and woman becoming one flesh. We're describing a bond of loyalty and devotion and mutual responsibility. Faithfulness is a cornerstone of moral society. Kind parenting. Look in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, where it says, "Educate the child according to his way." Highlighting guidance, patience, and nurturing their strength. Raising children with compassion and integrity is a foundational act of partnership with God. And of course, respectful relationships. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. Even though that mitzvah is addressed specifically to Israel, it expresses a universal moral truth, which is that human relationships must be rooted in dignity, respect, and care. And when we live this ideal, we build peace and harmony in the world. Seeking justice and rejecting corruption is a central Noahide mission. Fairness, the Torah speaks of honest weights and measures as an example. If you look at Leviticus chapter 19, verses 35 through 36, teaches that justice begins with personal integrity. Fairness means treating others without bias, deception, or manipulation. You will see all over the Tanakh that the prophets condemn those who exploit labor or gain through dishonesty, and that earning a livelihood with honesty is a form of divine service. That's integrity at work. Protecting the vulnerable. Proverbs chapter 31, verses 8 through 9, instructs the following: open your mouth for the mute, judge righteously, plead the cause of the poor and needy. When we stand up for those who cannot protect themselves, that's our central expression of moral courage. That's how you know the quality of any society is what they do for their most vulnerable members. Opposing cruelty, whether that's physical, emotional, systemic, or rooted in the oppression of the vulnerable, is essential to preventing the moral decay that destroys societies. The Torah repeatedly highlights the plight of the widow and the orphan, for example. You'll see that in Exodus chapter 22, verses 21 through 23, and Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 18. Point being is that a righteous society protects those who cannot protect themselves. Now here's another thing. Stand with Israel. That means the people of Israel who live all over this world, and the people of Israel who live in the state of Israel. And do this without imitating Judaism. In other words, do stand with the peace of Israel. The Torah envisions Israel as a moral and spiritual center for the world. As it says in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3, Ki mitzion teitze Torah u'devar Hashem miYerushalayim. For out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. The word Zion refers either to the land of Israel as a whole, or it refers to Jerusalem specifically. Supporting its peace and stability affirms a partnership with that vision. Fight anti-Semitism. Torah warns repeatedly against harming or slandering the people of Israel. Standing against anti-Semitism is an act of justice and loyalty to truth itself. Of course, learn universal Torah wisdom. Since the Noahide laws are transmitted through the Jewish people, Noahides should see themselves as standing within the broader Torah community. By learning the universal teachings of Torah, they participate in the same stream of divine wisdom that has flowed through Israel for millennia. And the only don't here is don't copy Jewish ritual or invent commandments for yourselves. Ritual mitzvot are the unique covenantal responsibilities of the Jewish people. The problem with imitating them is that it blurs the distinction that God himself established between what we can call, I guess, the priestly role of Israel and the universal mission of humanity. So you honor Israel by being a righteous Noahide person. Very important. For guidance, Noahides are on a real spiritual path. And every real path needs teachers. The Torah is deep, it's layered, it's nuanced. And a life of conscience and responsibility is strengthened when it's guided by wisdom. So, just as Jews need rabbis to help them understand and apply Torah, Noahides benefit tremendously from having rabbis who can clarify boundaries, answer questions, prevent confusion, and offer direction. This does not mean becoming dependent, imitative, or losing your own voice. It means walking with clarity because you have guidance. A good rabbi does not take over your relationship with God. He helps you remove the obstacles that block it. And like I said before, the Torah is not absorbed passively. It's taught. And to receive Torah in the way it was meant to be received, you need a teacher. Someone who carries the tradition, understands its contours, and can guide you in applying it to your life with integrity and clarity. And that relationship has to be personal. YouTube videos can be inspiring. They could be informative. They could even be transformative. Sometimes you hear that one thing that you needed to just change your whole life. But you know what? Guidance, for that you need real people, real conversations, real accountability. Torah becomes alive when it's transmitted from heart to heart, mind to mind, soul to soul. And build community. Another essential part of the Noahide path is this: don't walk it alone. Make connections, form friendships, learn together, and when it's possible, seek out Jewish friends as well, people who can help you understand the Torah's worldview from within the living tradition, not as an abstract text. Share insights, support one another, encourage each other through the challenges of living a moral and responsible life. The B'nai Noach is all of humanity outside the Jewish people. It's a vast and diverse family. And when individuals connect, study, and grow together, they strengthen not only themselves, but the moral fabric of this whole world. A practical Noahide life is richer, more grounded, and more joyful when it's walked in community. For example, Sukkot Shalom, a space where Noahides can learn and grow and support one another. You can look down there for the link in the description. So the closing charge: stop guessing and start living. You have a path, a practical Noahide life. Live by conscience, with courage. Stand for justice with integrity. Build peaceful homes. Pray honestly. Study wisdom. Stand with Israel. Walk with the God who made you. This is your calling, your dignity. This is your partnership with God. May you walk it with clarity and courage. If you have any questions or topics you'd like to see discussed here, please put them in the comments section.